Welcome to the Rising Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Mark J. Silverman. A former tech CEO who I haven't heard from or seen his name in at least 2 decades, maybe even more, contacted me through LinkedIn, and immediately inside my heart smiled, because I remember way back when in the early 2000s, he and I had a deep conversation about my career, about how tough it was in the tech industry and how competitive. And I was about to quit my job. I was not making my number. My boss was berating me, and I did not have the confidence to work through that problem. I was new to all of this, and I was easily crushed. And he talked me through it, talked through the consequences of me walking out the door and quitting, because I was just going to tell my boss, I'm just not good at this, right? So he had this wonderful conversation with me, and then our companies kind of went separate ways, so I never heard from him again. And he gets in touch with me and says, I've been following you for years, and we wanted to have a conversation about the future for him, which was very validating for me. It just felt really, really good, but also because I just loved what this guy did for me 20, 25 years ago. And it got me thinking about confidence and courage, and how I had no confidence back then. I remember when I first got sober, and I got the job at the Four Seasons to work the lunch shift, the breakfast and lunch shift. And before every sitting, I would sit at my garridon, which was I guess that's the French word for where your station was. I would sit there and polish silverware, and I would sweat. I was terrified. I was a waiter. And of course, it was the Four Seasons, and the clientele were dignitaries and royalty and rich people and all that stuff. But every day, terrified, 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 until after a few years, I actually became a trainer in that restaurant, and then they promoted me to the office of the hotel. They told me I was the first person who went from the restaurant to the office in the history of that hotel, which was kind of fun. But I did every day. I showed up so scared, and I showed up anyway. I remember when I went on my first couple of tech interviews to be a salesman, I was terrified every single day. I was terrified to pick up the phone. I was terrified to walk into a room. I would start presentations and I would just sweat. I hated being a sweater, but I sweat, and I was terrified every day. I made my number. I blew my number out year after year after year, and I was still terrified every day. I remember my men's group asking me to talk to them about how to make money. How do I make so much money? And the only answer I had for them was I showed up every day. I felt like putting the covers over my head, and I got up every day anyway, and I showed up. And then I heard a quote once. It says, show up and you're ahead of 90% of the people. Show up on time and you're ahead of 95% of the people. And if you show up on time prepared, you're ahead of 99% of the people. So that's the way I kind of went about things. And my ex-wife Robin used to say, Mark, I don't know how you pull these rabbits out of the hat. She knew what was going on the inside, and then I would go out in the world and I would do these things. So now I make my living on helping people grow into roles that are beyond them. They've gotten promoted beyond what they've done before. So confidence is often an issue. A lot of the people that I coach are younger than their peers. They've gotten to where they've gotten to really fast, and now they need a different set of skills. So I'm constantly talking about confidence. You look on YouTube, there's so many videos on confidence, and you can look at those videos and they'll tell you a confident man or woman stands this way. A confident man or woman says, speaks in this fashion. A confident man, and they'll give you a checklist of all of the symptoms of being a confident person, but they don't tell you how to get there. And what I've learned, because I don't feel confident, but I'm confident because I know that if I fail, I'll be okay. And I'm confident because I know that I've done new things before. But that feeling inside, that fear is still there every time I step on stage, every time I turn on a mic for a podcast like this, or I'm being interviewed, or I'm interviewing somebody else. That fear shows up. I don't know if I've talked to you about when I sent the manuscript for the Rising Leader Handbook to Steve Chandler, the godfather of coaching, and how I sat there with my finger hovering over send, sweating in my office, waiting, like, and finally he was the last person I sent it to, terrified. That's not confidence, but maybe it's courage. So let's talk about confidence and courage together. If you go over all the stories that I just told you about myself, you might not think of any of that as confidence. What you'll think of that is as courage. Uh, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing it anyway. Everything I've ever done in my life is because of the courage to do something scared. I wish, it sounds kind of arrogant to say I had courage, but just me thinking about it when I went back and in that conversation with that CEO way before, I'm kind of proud of myself because it doesn't feel like courage. It doesn't feel like confidence. It doesn't feel like anything powerful or strong or manly or anything. At the time, it feels terrifying. I feel like a little kid. I feel like a scared child. But if I look back, it's badass. It's courage to turn on a microphone when you think you sound like a male Fran Drescher and start a podcast and go 800 episodes of a podcast. It's badass to say, I'm going to write a leadership book, even though inside I'm like, who am I to write a leadership book? That's crazy. So I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about what is it that you're going to do next? Where are you going to step out? Are you going to step out on stage? Are you going to have a conversation with someone that you care about? That's a difficult conversation. Are you going to step into a new role, a new job, anything like that? The future, like when we look at the news, it's quite scary when we look at the news. Where are you going to find your confidence? And I think it's going to be in the courage. And for me, courage and confidence go hand in hand in, do I have a track record of handling things in the past? I'm alive. I've made it through 100% of the days that I've had. Right? I have actually succeeded every day of my life for 63 years. So I have that track record, but I also have track record of actually accomplishing things, of doing things scared and accomplishing things. I have the track record of failing and being okay. Um, let's see. The other things that I think about is being prepared. So if you're going to go on stage and you don't prepare for your talk, you have no business being confident, right? Confidence comes from having been, putting in the work, putting in the reps, doing your presentation for your friends, for your dog, for the mirror before you step on stage, so that when you're a deer in the headlights, when that fear comes in, you have automatic muscle memory. So confidence and courage go hand in hand, but don't forget to put in the work beforehand. I think a couple of episodes back we talked about Mike and Greg going in. Oh no, actually, it was in the newsletter. In my newsletter called Rock'em Sock'em Robots. If you go back on LinkedIn and go find that, I talked about two of my heroes who seem super confident. And then one day I was working late and I saw them drinking beer, practicing their presentation for the next day, practicing and practicing and practicing. One of them hitting them with the objections and all the FUD that they could get so that they'd be prepared. And what I wrote in the newsletter is that their confidence was earned. They walked in there just so confident, but they earned it because they put in the work. So confidence is not the absence of fear, right? Confidence is, I can be scared and do it anyway. Don't wait for these insides to feel a certain way to label it courage or confidence. It's never going to feel that way in here. The people who do feel overly confident, I wonder if they're sociopaths. I just don't understand. If you're human and you're empathetic, you care what people think about you. You care about crashing and burning. That makes you human. But go and do it anyway and see what happens. If you fail, you'll find out that you're going to be okay. That'll add to your confidence. If you succeed, that goes into your confidence bank. Hope this was helpful. I love you a ton. Have a great rest of the day.